Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
We begin on page 358. On this Shabbat Shuvah, this Shabbat of return which falls between the celebration of the New Year and the Day of Atonement, we read from the words of Hosea, "Return, O Israel, to the eternal your God. Return to all that is good, for you have fallen. You have been brought low by the way that you wrong one another. Take your words and seek to Shuvah, seek to return. Say to the heavens, forgive. Forgive all the ways that I have done wrong. Accept all the good that I have tried to do. Instead of sacrificing bulls, we will repay you with words." And we know the response already. When we seek to Shuvah, it is granted. When we seek to return, we are welcomed back. When we see the wrongs we have done, acknowledge them, try to do better, then we bring ourselves to new heights. As we renew our days, we welcome Shabbat, a weekly reminder of the possibility of perfection, a taste of what can be. We make it real in our lives as we celebrate this day of rest. To light the candles and begin the Sabbath day, we turn to pages 2 and 3 and welcome the Ledobor family. We read together from the top of page 3. As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we by our lives give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light. Please rise if you are able as we sing together.
May the glow of these candles bring peace to the world, and the spirit of Shekinah surround us. May the blessings of our days fill our hearts with love, and Shabbat Shalom be here. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu
It's always joyful and wonderful to celebrate young people and those who are feeling comfortable enough to explore our sacred space. I hope that it reminds us all of the importance and the value of exploring our own sacred tradition and how important that is to continue to wrestle and grapple with what that means. You may be seated as we turn to page 6. I know, Jesse, I know. We're just so glad you're here. On page 6, we read responsively from the middle of the page. May the door of this synagogue be wide enough to receive all who hunger for love, all who are lonely for friendship. May it welcome all who have cares to unburden, thanks to express, hopes to nurture. May the door of this synagogue be narrow enough to shut out pettiness and pride, envy and enmity. May its threshold be no stumbling block to young or straying feet. May it be too high to admit complacency, selfishness, and harshness. May this synagogue be, for all who enter, the doorway to a richer, more meaningful life. On page 20, we welcome Shabbat. Lecha Dodi, we sing together verses 1 and 2, and then rise to face the entrance for verse 9.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala Penei Shabbat nekavela Lecha Dodi likrat kala Penei Shabbat nekavela Shemor v'zachor b'dibur echad Ki hishmianu el ham yuchad Adonai echad u'shmo echad L'shem u'tiferet v'litila Likrat kala Penei Shabbat nekavela Lecha Dodi Likrat kala Penei Shabbat nekavela Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha Ki hi mikor habracha Merosh mekedem nesucha Sof ma'aseh b'machshavach tihila Lecha Dodi likrat kala Penei Shabbat nekavela Lecha Dodi likrat kala Penei Shabbat nekavela Boi v'shalom ateret bala Gam b'simcha tzohala Toch emunei am segula Boi chala Likrat kala Penei Shabbat nekavela Lecha Dodi Likrat kala Penei Shabbat nekavela
As we welcome Shabbat, we also take a moment to welcome one another and to wish each other a Shabbat Shalom. Please turn to those around you and introduce yourself. Shabbat Shalom. We remain standing, page 29. O God, you are as near as the very air we breathe, yet farther than the farthermost star. We yearn to reach you. We seek the light and warmth of your presence. Though we say you are near, we are lonely and alone. O let our desire be so strong that it will tear the veil that keeps you from our sight. Let your light release our darkness and reveal the glory and joy of your presence. On the facing page, our call to prayer, page 28.
Lai la lai 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 lai. Lai la lai 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 lai. Lai la lai 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 la lai 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 lai. Lai la lai 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 lai. Lai la lai 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 la lai 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 lai. Lai la lai 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 lai. Baruch hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. HaMevorach, HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
On page 30, we read together in Hebrew. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bivaro ma'ariv aravim, b'chochma poteach she'arim, uvidvuna mishanei itim, umachalif et hazmanim, umesader et hakochavim, b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono, borei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or, uma'avir yom umevi layla, umavdil ben yom uvein layla, Adonai tzavaot shemo, El chai v'kayam, tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai, ha'ma'ariv aravim. Page 32. Everlasting love you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, וחיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, וחיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובפי שעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Page 41. Sing the song of men and women joined in understanding and respect, the song of God's miracles and earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come. The song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers home to leave no more. The song of a world redeemed, the song of peace. Micha mocha bailim Adonai, page 40, the facing page.
Mocha ba'elim Adonai, mikamocha nedar ba'kodesh, nora tehilot osefele, osefele. Michamocha ba'elim Adonai, mikamocha nedar ba'kodesh, nora tehilot osefele, osefele. Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai, Gai Yisrael.
As those words were sung by our ancestors after crossing the sea, reaching freedom after hundreds of years of slavery, they knew a moment of peace, a moment of protection. And that feeling of peace and protection is something we continue to pray for and to long for. Having tasted it once, we long to taste it again. We pray together at the top of page 43. We read together. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, hapores sukat shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. That peace and that protection is represented in our lives every 7 days as we celebrate Shabbat. We sing out in joy on page 44 that Shabbat is here from the middle of the page. Yismechu.
Yismechu b'maltechutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, v'korei oneg Shabbat. Yismechu b'maltechutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, v'korei oneg Shabbat. Ami kadeshei, mekadeshei shevi Shabbat, כולם ישמעו ויתענגו מטובך שבת, ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת, קורא עונג שבת, ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת, וקורא עונג שבת, ובשביל רצו וקידוש שבת, חמדת ימים אותו קראתו שבת, ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת, וקורא עונג שבת, ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת, וקורא עונג שבת, זכר למעשה וראשית שבת, זכר למעשה וראשית שבת, ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת, וקורא עונג שבת, ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת, וקורא עונג שבת.
On page 46, we begin our Amidah, which is the main offering of our worship in most services, most times that we get together. This piece of liturgy is said to replace the sacrifices, as Hosea says, as we read this Shabbat Shuvah. It is the words of our mouths and our lips which will replace the offerings of bulls and rams on the altar. And when we say that, we often mean this section of prayers, our Amidah. As a special Shabbat between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, each of the three blessings that we will offer, the three prayers that we will offer at the beginning of the Amidah, include a special addition or selection in honor of Shabbat Shuvah, in honor of these days of awe. And so I just would invite you to be aware of that, as if you are able to rise, please do, as we begin our Amidah together.
Lai, 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 lai. 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 Adonai, Sephatai Tivta, Ufi Agi, Tehila Teha, Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Adonai, Sephatai Tivta, Ufi Agid, Tehila Teha. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Hasdei Avot V'imachot, Umevi Gula Livnei V'nechem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava. Zochreinu lechaim, melech hafetz b'chaim, v'chodreinu b'sefer למענך אלוהים Choser u'Mashiach u'Magein, Baruch atah Adonai, Magein Avraham v'Ezrat Sarah. Ata gibor leolam Adonai, mechaye hakol ata rav lechoshia, morid hata, mechachel chayim bechesed, mechaye hakol berachamim rabim, somech noflim verofech olim, umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato lishenei afar, micha mocha bal gevurot, umito mehelach, melech memihit umechaye, umatzniach Yeshua.
Micha mocha av harachamim, zocher yitzurav l'chaim barachamim. Ne'eman ata l'chayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai, mechaye hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, ukdoshim bechol yom yahalelu chasela. Baruch atah Adonai, hamelech hakadosh. You may be seated. Page 55. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai mikadesh hashabbat. We give thanks and express gratitude for the blessings present in our lives as we join in song together on page 58. Modim anachnu lach, modim anachnu lach,
modim anachnu lo. We thank you, God, for all your gifts. Modim anachnu lo. Modim anachnu lo.
The bottom of the page. For all these things, O Sovereign, let your name be forever praised and blessed. Inscribe all the children of your covenant for a good life. O God, our Redeemer and Helper, let all who live affirm you and praise your name in truth. Blessed are you, Adonai, your name is goodness, and you are worthy of thanksgiving. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulecha na'eh lehodot. We take a moment for silent prayer and reflection, and then we'll continue in song on page 62. We turn our thoughts now to those in need of healing of any sort, mind, body, or spirit. As we think of them, we offer prayer on their behalf and extend our hopes to them that they know that we love them and care for them and are here for them to help however we can. If you have people you are praying for and on behalf of, I invite you to share their names as I look around the sanctuary. David? On our community list, we have Diane Novick and Bob Novick. We also are thinking of all of those who are struggling in the aftermath or in the midst of Hurricane Ian in Florida and the Carolinas. We pray for all of those who are struggling with illness and with their own well-being and the well-being of their loved ones in the midst of violence and terror and tragedy around the world. As we join together in prayer for them and for all people, on behalf of our world, a prayer for healing.
Body and soul, and may we hear your love through fear. We understand we're in your hands. Of future life, and may this prayer bring more light. Not me alone, Yehi Ratzon, may it be your will that we heal. Not me alone, can you hear Ratzon?
A folk tale from the Jewish community of Yemen. Sorry, there's lots of things to organize here. There was once a king named Solomon. You may know of him, but not everybody does. He was known throughout the world at the time that he lived, for his wisdom. Not only his wisdom, though, he had some special abilities. It is said that he could command the winds and the birds to come whenever they called him, whenever he called them. He even knew the languages of each different type of bird and animal on earth. Kings and queens would come from all over the world to Jerusalem to pay homage to King Solomon, and he welcomed each one as a royal guest. Once the Queen of Sheba came to visit him. She brought him many precious gifts from her kingdom, and the king asked her what gift she would like in return. "Oh, I would like something that no other queen on earth has ever had," she said. And then she spoke aloud the first thing that came to mind. "Build me a palace of bird beaks." "Well, in that case," said King Solomon, "let such a palace be built." King Solomon called forth all the birds in the world and commanded them to come to Jerusalem, to come to his palace, prepared to give up their beaks. Before even a day had gone by, thousands of birds filled the sky, beating their wings and swooping down into the palace. All came: the strong eagle, the tiny hummingbird, the bluebird, the mockingbird, every bird that lived on earth. But they weren't particularly happy about having to give up their beaks. But what could they do? They were among the smallest creatures in the kingdom. Soon every bird had flocked to the palace except one, the hoopoe, a little bird with colorful feathers and a fine pointed beak. As time passed and it did not arrive, the king became angry. "Fetch the hoopoe and bring it at once," he shouted to his servants. "Let it be punished for failing to obey the king." At last, finally, the hoopoe was brought before the king. "Where have you been?" King Solomon demanded. "Why have you kept me waiting?" "Please, your majesty, do not be angry with me," said the hoopoe. "I have come here from the ends of the earth. I have flown over gardens and forests and oceans and deserts, and from all that I have seen, I have gained so much wisdom. Punish me if you must, but first, give me a chance to prove that I have not just been flying lazily about. Let me ask you 3 riddles. If you can answer them correctly, then do what you will with me. But if there is even one of them that you cannot answer, then spare my life." The other birds gasped. How dare a bird bargain with a king, much less King Solomon? But King Solomon admired this bold little creature and accepted his challenge. "Very well," he said, "ask your riddles. After all, how can your wisdom be compared with that of the king?" So the hoopoe spoke. "This is the first riddle. Tell me, your majesty, who is it who was never born and has never died?" Anyone have the answer? Who was never born and has never died? God. The king didn't even have to pause. He knew it right away. The Lord of the world, the God of the world, the eternal blessed one. That is the one who created all creatures. The one who created all creatures to be free. The hoopoe continued. "Here is the second riddle. Tell me, your majesty, what water never rises from the ground and never falls from the sky?" There it is. King Solomon smiled because he knew the answer. The answer is a tear. A tear that falls from an eye that cries with sadness. As he finished answering, King Solomon looked around and saw all those birds stretched out before him, waiting sadly, helplessly for their beaks to be cut off. The king was saddened, and a tear came from his eye. Now, a strange thing happened. Although King Solomon was certain that his wisdom was perfect, for just a moment it occurred to him that, well, perhaps he had done a foolish thing in agreeing to build a palace of beaks. Then the hoopoe spoke again, and this time it trembled, for it had only one riddle left, and the king had already answered 2 of them without too much trouble. One more chance to save itself. Your Majesty, what is it that is delicate enough to put food in a baby's mouth, yet strong enough to bore holes in the hardest wood? Yeah. It did not take King Solomon long to reply either. A bird's beak, of course. And looking around at the great gathering of birds, he realized how special these creatures were and how very precious their beaks were to them. Meanwhile, the hoopoe bowed its head. Punish me as you will, Your Majesty, for you have answered my 3 riddles. And it waited in silence to hear the harsh punishment of the king. But the king was smiling. Dear hoopoe, he announced in a loud voice so that all the birds could hear, I am known throughout the world for my wisdom, yet you are the one who is truly wise. You have shown me that a king should never be too proud to admit he has made a mistake. I have decided not to build a palace of bird beaks after all. At this, all the birds wanted to flap their wings in joy, but they did not dare to interrupt the king. Then the brave hoopoe spoke up and said, Your Majesty, how can we ever thank you? Even though we cannot give the Queen of Sheba a palace of bird beaks, we would be glad to build a palace of feathers for her. Now the Queen of Sheba was delighted by this offer, for such a palace would be just as unique as one built out of bird beaks and perhaps even more special. And as soon as she agreed, flocks of birds stirred up great winds as they swooped down to donate feathers for the palace. And when there was a mountain of feathers lying before them, the birds built a palace of great beauty out of those feathers. When they were finished, the Queen of Sheba was speechless, for never had she received such a beautiful gift. Then the King Solomon said to the hoopoe, For your wisdom, you shall be rewarded. The king called forth the royal jeweler and bade him make the bird a small crown, much like that of a king. When the crown was finished, King Solomon himself placed it upon the head of the hoopoe. And that, my friends, is why the hoopoe wears a crown on its forehead to this day, so that we will remember as we see them, and to remind all of the birds that it encounters of the wise hoopoe who saved all of the birds and their beaks. Despite their wisdom, Solomon and Queen Sheba had an idea and thought it was the best idea, and in their power they had no reason to wonder whether what they wanted was right or good or what it would mean for anyone or anything else, until a little hoopoe stopped them long enough to actually consider, force them to consider what they were doing, how it might impact the world and God's creatures, how it might impact their own relationship with God. As they learned, the queen and the king, that their idea was harmful, they realized that their hubris had made them blind, a blindness which would cause them to abuse living creatures. No matter how wise you think you are, it turns out you need others. Even the least powerful might be able to help you. Everyone has a different perspective, and if we don't engage with those who have those other perspectives, we might find ourselves blind to how we might be hurting or destroying our world. With the help of just small birds, Solomon and the Queen of Sheba do something even more incredible than building a palace of bird beaks. And this causes them to rise to even greater levels of righteousness. And as we find ourselves in the midst of the high holy days, we have to wonder, are we seeking the help of birds or those things, those creatures, those people that we ignore and see as beneath us and below us? Are we blind to the way that our decisions impact others and the people and the world around us? Are we deaf to the cries of those in need? Can we find ways to come together to build a world, a palace, that is even more special and unique than the world, the palace that we can imagine for ourselves. If we come together to consider and to dream about what the world can be, it is far more likely we will build a world that is worthy of God's presence and build a palace that is more special and more unique than we could imagine if we just sat by ourselves, thinking that we had our own best ideas and need not hear any others. As the high holy days are upon us and as Yom Kippur is around the corner, let us take the time in these days of awe to consider how we might embrace the people in the world around us and how we might make this new year an even better year than the year before. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat is a symbol of holiness and possibility, a symbol of peace and perfection that comes to remind us of what is possible every 7 days as we seek to build the world we know we can build. As we celebrate that fact, we turn to page 5 in our prayer book to lift the symbol of joy and sweetness in Jewish tradition, the cup of wine. On page 5, we join together for Kiddush. Please rise if you are able.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu. V'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinhilanu. Zikaron lema'aseh bereshit. Ki hu yom tehillah lemikrae kodesh. Zecher litziat mitzrayim. Kivanu v'harta v'yotanu kidashta mikol hamim v'shabbat kodshecha be'achava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat. Amen.
L'chaim. Page 282. Aleinu l'shabeach.
Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, latet gedula liltzei bereshit, shelo asanu kugiyeh haratzot, velo samanu kimishpechot hadama, shelo sam chelkenu kachem, vegor aleinu kecho hamona, vanachnu korim umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad.
You may be seated. Page 200, to page 290. It is a fearful thing to love what death can touch, a fearful thing to love, hope, dream, to be and oh to lose. A thing for fools this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me, your word was gift to me. To remember this brings a painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing to love what death has touched. As we remember those of our loved ones who have been taken from our midst, we turn to page 294 to recite Mourner's Kaddish, and if I mention the name of a loved one, I invite you to rise. We're in a period of Shloshim and mourn the recent death of Michael Cohen and Henry Geller. This anniversary week of their passing, we observe yahrzeit for Martin Balk, Elmer Birkenfield, Barney Borenstein, Ruth Cohen, Joseph Davidson, Cecilia Deitz, Lillian Sis K. Drucksmann, Edward Fishman, Fanny Atkin Franklin, Beatrice Rebecca Gottlieb, Erwin Jerome Harris, Ozias Keim, Sam Coburn, Goldie Quartz, Sylvia Kozak, Nathan H. Liebson, Alfred Levin, Rena Marcus, Rivka Chaya Tova Meyer, Jeannie Moy, Julia Picard, Grace Railanu, Ruth L. Robinson, Rebecca Merkin Rosenberg, Jenny Roth, Celia Schechter, Samuel I. Schwartz, Clara Stone, Henry Valdez, Charlotte Weiss. Are there any names to add? We remember them, and we remember all of those who have no one to say Kaddish for them as we stand together as one communal family. Page 294. Yit gadal v'yit kadash shemei rabah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shemei rabah mevarach le'olam u'lamei almayah. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shemei d'kudashah b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, dameran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us, to all Israel, to all the world, as together we say, Amen. Zichronam livracha. May their memories be a blessing. You may be seated.
Oh, say shalom b'mromav. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen.
This time we welcome forward Temple President Stuart Schwartz to offer announcements. Is that right? Okay.
Shabbat Shalom. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. I'd like to say thank you to Naomi Estrada for greeting us this evening, and Susie Novick as well. To our Bema guests, Dan and Lindsay Kaplan, thank you also very much for being here. And our past president, Sherry Schwartz, thank you as well. To Elvira Spector and Mindy Escobar-Leanne's beautiful job, thank you so much for leading us in prayer. And Ben, you as well for your beautiful words and your sermon. As we try to commit ourselves to making the world a better place. During these high holy days, we are raising funds for the local food bank, El Pasoans Fighting Hunger. There is our envelopes in the back if you'd care to take an envelope and write a check to the Tikkun Olam Fund at Temple and return it. We will then gather those checks and deliver them as our commitment, as Temple's commitment to making the world a better place, to Tikkun Olam, to repairing the world. So I encourage you to take advantage of that opportunity. I'd like to thank our Shabbat sponsors, Boris Keim and Fifi Heller-Keim, in memory of Ozias Keim, to Janet Fishman, in memory of Edward Fishman, to Haiti and Jerry Appel in memory of Grace Raylanu. Join us for our Kaveh Avot Memorial Service this Sunday, October 2, at 5 p.m. at the cemetery. And don't forget Yom Kippur services, Kol Nidre, at 8 p.m. on Tuesday night, October 4th. And the services begin also on Wednesday, October 5th, with a family service at 9 a.m. and the morning service at 10:30. Also join us after the morning service in person and virtually to discuss the plans for Temple's capital campaign. I think you will learn a lot about those plans, and we look forward to having you participate with us in that effort. Check your weekly email for the complete schedule of in-person and streamed opportunities. Wish you a wonderful Shabbat and Shana Tova.
We conclude in song on page 322. Page 322, Ein Kelohenu. If you are able to rise, please do.
Ein Kelohenu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkenu, Ein Kemoshienu, Mi Elohenu, Mi Chadonenu, Mi Kemalkenu, Mi Kemoshienu. No del Eloheinu, no del Adonenu, no del Malkeinu, no del Moshienu. Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu. Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu.
Adonai Oz Le'amo Yitain, may God give strength to our people. Adonai Yivarech et Amo Bashalom, may God bless all people with peace. Shabbat Shalom. Please join us for Kiddush and Motzi outside the sanctuary.